say that we have an abundance of inspiring leaders in the room today, including in these chairs as I face each of you. But you know, this conversation, I've been in this conversation myself as a woman, with women and with companies and industry for many years. I agree with you, Aline. It is time to go beyond conversation, and we're making strides, but we can go faster. I work a lot in developing countries, but I had the privilege to work in the Nordic countries after a while, whose ratios are much higher. Their benchmarks are higher. I assumed actually that meant they must have started at a different place, that they must have always had some balance. Other parts of the world did not. I learned that is not true. I learned that, let's say in the 1950s, when in the United States where I'm from, you had the very traditional women stay home, men are at work. Well, I found out that in the 1950s, that's what those countries looked like too. But in the last 50 to 60 years, they made leaps and bounds, while others did not. And my sense is it started with commitment. When they decided, they decided. And when they did it, they actually did it. They didn't just have a conversation and a meeting. So I'm already in that pledge, but I'll take it again today, that we are going to have a lot of tea and a lot of action after our tea for this. So with that, I'd like to invite some other inspiring global leaders to share their views from the big picture statistics to the on the ground, what does this look like when we're getting it right? Where is the creativity and innovation happening? Can diversity be a driver of innovation? Is it a competitive advantage? I can tell you that we should not ask that like a question anymore. We are proving that it is all of the above, and the great companies are leading the way, and the only great companies of tomorrow will be doing it this way. With that, I'd like to invite Doreen Bogdan-Martin, Chief of Strategic Planning and Membership for the International Telecommunication Union, Susana Balbo, Chair of Women 20, Argentina, Nimma Bakshi, Managing Director of PwC Global Advisory Services. Back to our stage, Aline Santos, Global Executive Vice President of Global Marketing for Unilever and Diversity and Inclusion, and Dr. Salma Abbasi, Chairperson and CEO of Eworldwide Group. Welcome to the stage. I'm excited to see all of you. Actually, I wish we had a lot more time because each of these folks are a fountain of wisdom and accomplishment in their own right. We only have a little time today, and we will try to leave some time for Q&A. So think about your questions that you want to hone in, and we'll do our best to create some engagement as well. I've introduced you, but I'd really like for you to take a moment, each of you, to again say who you are, what organization you're with, and share from your perspective why this conversation about diversity as a driver of innovation and competitive advantage, what does that mean from your part of the world and your side of the ecosystem?
Thank you, Kimberly. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Doreen Bogdan, and I'm the Chief of Strategic Planning at the International Telecommunications Union. And for those of you that don't know, the ITU is a specialized agency of the United Nations. We were created back in 1865, and we have 193 member states, and our mission is all about connecting all of the world's people, and that's a big challenge today when 3.8 billion people are still not connected. And when we look at connectivity, we know that it's actually women that are most affected, as there are fewer women online, fewer women with mobile phones, and fewer women taking advantage of all the benefits that connectivity had to offer. I just wanted to maybe quickly give some numbers, and then we can get into more later. So to add to what our wonderful keynote speaker was saying, when we look at the ICT sector, we have a big problem with diversity, and it's good that in so many of the halls here and over at the main conference, this is really being focused upon. And if we look at Europe, We see that in the tech sector, only about 17% of the tech sector is comprised of women. And we look at why, we can see that only 1 out of 5 graduates in the ICT fields are actually women. So that's a big problem. And then those graduating with those kinds of degrees, only about, and this is focused on Europe, 2.4% end up in the tech sector. And then even worse, only 0.5% stay in the tech sector after 5 years. So I just wanted to perhaps start with that, but it's a big problem, as you've already noted. So it's time to move beyond words into action. Thank you.
Hi. Good morning. I'm Susana Balbo. I'm W20 Argentina chair. I am an entrepreneur, and I've been appointed to the president of Argentina to lead the dialogue for women in order to bring to the leaders all the society, the civil society recommendations to become specific policies to increase women participation in the world economy. Giving some numbers as well, there is studies and research that shows if the women that are already trained, there are around 240 million women in the emerging countries that has college graduation and they are not in the task force, they are not working because they leave the work to take care of the children. If we can to incorporate these women in the labor, we can increase the GDP in the countries, in the W20 countries, around 15%. That is a huge impact in the world economy and also in the quality of life in the world. We have more numbers to share later on, but this is my mission for this year.
Hi everybody, I'm Nimma Bakshi. I'm with PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I work in an area called Global Alliances. And as far as what diversity means to our firm, I will build upon several of the statistics that have been shared in the course of this panel. But I believe we are at the point where it is about accountability. And in our firm, what one would consider a conservative firm several years ago, we said we need to turn this upside down. And we began something called the Global Inclusion Index. And what that means is along gender, along race, along demographics, or along cross-pollination of people in countries and regions to other countries and regions, how much better are we getting every year? And these things are hard. So over 7 years we've been measuring it, we're only 10% better. And this is an entire firm of 200,000 people, 150 plus countries, particularly focused on 20 of the largest countries, focused on programs to get better. So I say this to you in terms of accountability. Not only is at the personal level, it's at the startup community, it's at the venture capital community, it is at the large company community. Lastly, about me. In my role in leading multiple global partnerships between PwC and the emerging technology companies in working in about 20 countries, I am humbled. It is never about hierarchy. The ideas of the work of today, the work of the future, are coming from every possible source. And I want this group to know how, the statistics bear this, how badly we need you to share. And when I get into the panel, don't worry about failing. Don't worry. We need it. Thank you.
Okay. So I think that the maths are very, very simple. I think that if you go to the World Economic Forum in what they have been stating, basically, if we achieve gender balance, our economy is going to grow from 14 trillion to 33 trillion. Yeah, so it's absolutely relevant to all the world's problems that we need to solve. So having these problems solved will unleash the potential of solving many other problems for society. This is a big one. The bad news is that the same World Economic Forum is saying that it's going to take more than 100 years for us to achieve gender equality. And even worse, we are going backwards. It's taking more and more. Every year, it takes more time for us to achieve gender equality. That's why I think it's so important to make this pledge. I think it's important for all of us to take action. Otherwise, organically, we will be here forever. Thank you.
So I will introduce myself to the ladies here as a techie. I'm probably the same age of many of your mothers. My name is Dr. Salma Abbasi, and I'm the CEO and founder of Eworldwide Group. But I started my career as an ASIC chip designer in the 80s. So there were no role models then, and I still did it. And my parents are Indian and Pakistani, so I have a very Eastern background, but I was born and bred in England, and there were no women in my university. Then I did my master's in electrical engineering. And a couple of years ago, I decided to do my PhD in ICTs for development because I thought people in development didn't get it because they didn't understand the applications of technology. However, in my career, I retired from Lucent Technologies as a corporate executive, senior vice president of quality and customer satisfaction. And I can tell you, ladies, all I heard was complaints. People never tell you when things are going well. They only tell you when things are bad. But therein lies an opportunity. There was an opportunity for innovation and also for an opportunity for you to create a solution. So I'm hoping today I will give the other dimension. After retiring from Lucent 18 years ago, I started my own company in Dubai, the Eworldwide Group, and we focus in the space of security and safety and development. And I spend the majority of my time looking at how we can use technology practically to achieve the SDGs. I know Doreen very well. I'm very familiar with the sad numbers, but I'm hoping when we start talking through the panel, I will be able to give you the perspective of how you can actually transform from the bottom up, and some of the interventions that we're doing with Unilever, and how we have launched a program for Africa, which is digital literacy and financial literacy, called Right Skilling for Tomorrow. Thank you very much.
And I want to know about every one of these. We only have a small amount of time, so I want to make sure we get the most of what it is that you can leave to enrich the thinking that's going to go out of this room and the energy that's going to go out of this room. So as we go back through the panel, I know because I spoke with each of you, you have a lot more you want to share about specific initiatives and priorities. I'd like to invite you to take this microphone and send that message out there.
Thank you. So I would say that we know what we need to do to make a difference. And I agree with you on the point about accountability and the importance of measuring. And I just wanted to share a couple of things that we're doing in the ITU. First, something that we're doing internally, and also coming to your point about the World Economic Forum and kind of the sad predictions that it'll take over 100 years. Well, the UN Secretary General, in 1 year, he achieved gender parity in his senior management committee, which is actually historic. I hope one day we can do that in the ITU, but he did that, and that's quite historic, and it's because he had the will to do it. So he didn't choose incompetent women, he chose competent women, and he has now a balanced cabinet. Others can follow his example, and he has set a gender parity strategy for the UN system. So all of the funds and programs and the specialized agencies, and he has set a number of targets. Targets not for 100 years, but targets for 2023 and 2028. And I think that's great. It really pushes all of us in the UN system to report on the baseline where we are today and how are we going to get there and what measures are we going to take to actually achieve that. So that's something I wanted to note internally in terms of the UN system. Externally, what we're doing with 193 member states, and we have 800 private sector members and 150 academic institutions. So we have quite a diverse membership that we can really work with. And we've done things like Girls in ICT Day, where we're trying to grow the pool of girls, get them at sort of the middle school, even earlier age, and attract them to a field in ICTs, whether it's in STEM or STEAM, really to spark the interest. And this is the fourth Thursday of the fourth month, and we've been doing that for several years, and we've had 160 countries actually do celebrations. So that's helping us to try to grow the pipeline. The other thing we've done is we've created this global partnership called Equals, and it's the global partnership to bridge the digital divide. And we've taken kind of the whole ecosystem. We're looking at the access divide. So we're seeing that the digital gender gap is actually growing. So how can we tackle that access divide? And we have Matt Granyard from GSMA that's leading that up. Then we're focusing on skills and the need to equip and enable girls and women with the necessary digital skills to make use of ICTs. And we have UNESCO and the German government leading that. And then we have our leadership track, which is really focused on women in the tech sector, women entrepreneurs, and we'll be doing 3 pilot countries this year, led by the International Trade Center, and really trying to grow the women entrepreneur track. What makes this partnership interesting is that it's evidence-based. So we have this cross-cutting track where we're working with a number of universities. I think that to tackle this problem, we need more gender disaggregated data, and we really need to be evidence-based in our approach so that we get the right policies and the right practices to really move the needle and make a difference. I'll stop there. Thank you.
In order to be accurate in a few minutes, because it's very short time for the panel, I will tell you short about my previous life to become W20 chair. I am an entrepreneur from a male-dominated field that is winemaking. When I've been appointed as a W20, I questioned to myself, why me? And I think the reason is why I am an entrepreneur. Because in emerging countries, we need to change the world, and we need to change through entrepreneurship. That is why STEAM is very, very important. Because women, when they come into the field of different activities, they change the world. And in my case, the wine industry was very, very difficult in Argentina to achieve a change. However, when I realized if I wanted to make a change, is from inside, I did. And I did it, this change, taking over Wines of Argentina organization as a president. I figured out how to become a president, and in that moment, Wines of Argentina was exporting 0.7% of the market share. And after I approached it as a president, giving a female vision that is more holistic, more interchange with males, having board more equal, women's and men's, taking in my mind that 70% of the buying is made for females. I did it a different approach, and in that approach, we changed the export of Argentina from 0.7% to 3.7% in 4 years. That was a huge impact, just changing the composition of the board and how women can approach the market and everything. W20, we take in the W20, we take the challenge to change all the advising to strict policies directly into action, because we are plenty of advices, we are plenty of research, we already know the numbers, we need the action. And this is our goal for this year, and we are taking over this challenge, doing a beautiful consultancy, international and nationally, to change the world from the W20 from today and onwards. Thank you very much.
Okay, for those of you that like sports, I'm going to use a sports analogy tied to the mathematics here. In sports, when you are behind, when there is a deficit and yet there is a need, you often feel as though you don't want to finish. So in my working world, I always say always forward. Always make up if you have to make up ground. Doesn't matter how much, 3.7% compounded annually will get you quite far in a decade's time. So I say that because math, when modeled, can become a barrier. And yet, when humans collectively organize together, we do innovate. We do break out of the mathematical model. And once that momentum builds in sports and in life and in business, you feel it. Entrepreneurs, the unicorns of tomorrow, they operate with a sense of euphoric discipline. And it's tremendous to watch. Now, growing up in the Silicon Valley, at least the last nearly 30 years, Silicon Valley, watching the maturation of these companies, I've realized that most of those companies did not know they were going to succeed, but they disregarded the models, they disregarded the data. I agree with this point about gender disaggregation. So I say that to you to tie to what I opened with earlier. Bring it, share it. Don't worry about if it's right or wrong. Take the risk. Okay, personally, 3 things. As I work around the world, and I am in the business of taking blockchain and looking for whether it be urban or rural uses or smart cities around the preparation for AI and usage of 5G use cases. If I find people who I think have the talent and are not being given the opportunity, I use my role to bring them forward, to bring them around the world so they can do what they need to do, get that comparison on their ideas are innovative, and it's okay. It doesn't seem as though it's always going to be done in some kind of proper hierarchy, and that's the way the world is turning. It's much more human now. On a university level, I work with the University of Chicago in the Booth School, the business school, with their women in business. And I do this in large part because I can see that they need large organizations to repeatedly, year over year, lean in and contribute either internship opportunities, speakers, and people to network with that we put on panels. I will continue that with universities as they wish. This is the one I went to, so that's why we're close. And then lastly, it's about this, and your inspiring story, right? We form a net. So when someone says, I need help with something and I cannot help, Kimberly knows I will call. And we will help you because we have all been helped along the way. We had to fight along the way, but we've all been helped along the way. So those are the 3 ways that I wake up and I say, how am I contributing impact?
Right, so there's so much to say, but if I had to pick one thing, I think that the thing that I'm most passionate at the moment is to think how we can, accelerate the confidence among girls in order that they can take the next step.
So if it is STEM or STEAM, whatever they wanted to choose, I just want to give them this vote of confidence. And for that, I tell you a personal story. I grew up in Brazil, as I told you, and I had the most wonderful, wonderful childhood. Nothing to blame about my childhood. I had wonderful parents that really gave me a lot of confidence. But when I was looking around me and I was thinking about my future, I was thinking about, okay, in my future, I'm going to be a housewife like my mom, or maybe a teacher like my aunt. That is the sort of universe that I had around me. And that was, in my mind. And then one day, something happened. There was a movie that came from Hollywood to Brazil. That movie from Ridley Scott called Alien. Have you heard about Alien? When it arrived in Brazil, they translated Alien into Aline, which is my name. Yeah? And it was a disaster. At school, everybody bullying me. Aline the monster, Aline the monster, Aline the monster. It was horrible. And my mom said, Aline, you know what? Go to the movie and watch this damn, monster. And I went to the movie and I watched it. And to my surprise, in that movie, I knew it was just a movie. I found a woman, which was a woman that was making the day. She was Sergeant Ripley. She was Mr. Weaver, and she was the one who was killing all the monsters in that spaceship. Sigourney Weaver really gave me a wake-up call and say, wake up, girl. You can be whatever you want to be in your life. It's up to you. Nobody should define you. Your gender should define you. So this was a very important wake-up call for me. That is the same wake-up call that I would like to do to all the girls. At Unilever, with one of our brands, which I was very, very, privileged to participate 13 years ago, we launched a theory, which was a beauty theory of Dove Real Beauty. That was a theory about, building self-confidence on women and making women feel strong and beautiful, whoever they were. And since then, we have trained more than 27 million girls in terms of self-esteem. And that is the sort of push that I would do today. If there's anything that we have to choose to do, is to bring awareness about women that are already winning in this space and giving confidence to the ones that are still going to win.
I'd like to just go back to 2 points. That one was made by Doreen and by our colleague Nimma. The first thing is that I think many of you that read, you will know that there's been a great debate, and Doreen, we work very closely with the ITU, and that's the issue, the need of sex-segregated data. We've been talking about it for nearly 4 decades, and we make very little progress, sadly. Second thing is that we're always talking about changing the policies and including more gender neutrality into the policies. And actually society isn't neutral, so we need really clear, specific themes that are running through policies that integrate across the education system and science and technology, so that we can actually have a fair start from school. I think one of the things that I would encourage, again, girls to do, female entrepreneurs to do, is to look at where your passion lies. Where your passion lies is where you will excel. Just like Alina, my parents were I was lucky to have parents that believed that we could do anything. My sister and I were all engineers in my family, and everybody said, oh my God, you're teaching your girls engineering. What will happen? However, it teaches you logic. It teaches you to be resilient. It teaches you to do critical thinking. At the moment, we have a huge program in Africa trying to reskill teachers in the latest pedagogical practices to promote critical thinking. We have an overflow of misinformation, not to quote Donald Trump, false accusations. We need to be able to think and know right from wrong. We need to be able to look in our local context, whether we're in Germany or Brazil or US, there's always a need, there's always a gap. But revolve your thinking around that, and don't be afraid, please, don't be afraid of losing the idea. At this age of mine, I have had so many ideas stolen, it doesn't matter, because they all came from your head. You're the author, you're the only one who can actually see it through. I've met many young people who are afraid of sharing with VCs and other people. They can't take it, it's your baby. I design and define me, by what comes out of my mind and what's in my heart. So the passion and the knowledge is very clear. It's yours. It's with your DNA that you design a solution or a concept. And for me, we've done this with WHO, with the ITU, with UNICEF, with UNESCO. And those are global programs now. I haven't lost anything by that. So remember that be confident in yourself. Practice with your friends in a safe environment. Like the video showed, girls were not taken seriously. You just have to say, excuse me, I'm the one here. Don't be afraid of sounding a little bit arrogant here, but say it's my company, it's my idea, please talk to me. Never, never do a meeting in a bar or in a restaurant. You do a meeting in an office. I go to bed anyway at 8:30 because I wake up at 4. I refuse to have dinner with anybody but my family. It's not necessary. If they're interested in meeting you and making money from your idea, they will come to you or you go to their office or find another date. But there is no need for any young lady or man as to that to go to a bar. The other thing is continuous consultation. Consultation is key. Talk to people, listen to people. You don't have all the answers. I'm learning every day. So we don't have the answers at 20 or 30. The more people you talk to, the better your result net product will be. And also communicate. It's one thing that you sit on the side. Collaboration is key. The stronger we are as united. Go to universities, go to online lectures. You are in an era today where wherever you sit, whether you're in Nigeria or in Dubai, you can reach MIT. You can reach any institution and have online courses and provoke your thinking and find like-minded people that you can share your ideas with. This is what I encourage you to do. Don't be afraid and practice. Practice makes you perfect. Thank you.
We are quickly running out of time, but I want to know if anyone here has a burning question.
Elena, my question is for you, and it's in regards to something that you mentioned before during your keynote. I believe the statistic that you gave was 23% of the investment money is going, for startups, is going to female-founded companies. I think that was the correct, yeah, great. And you said that the goal is to have it at 50% in 5 years. And my question, what are the barriers that's preventing that from being 50% tomorrow? Why can't it be, okay, from now on, we just gave €1 million to a male-founded company. Tomorrow, we're giving €1 million to a female-founded company.
So obviously, we would like to achieve gender balance as fast as we can. If we can achieve it tomorrow, we will do it. So what we need to do is to help the ecosystem to give us the opportunities to identify the right startups to do business with us. Because the first thing is that we have to have the best startups. So we are not going to compromise about that. And this is good, and this is good for women as well. Because as women, the biggest disservice we can do to ourselves is to give us a job that we are not competent, to win in that job. So again, going back to the foundry and going back to what we want to achieve. We want to have the best startups working for Unilever. Today, the environment is very hostile. Today, only 17% of the founders are women. So we need to help the environment to be a better environment in order that we have a better pool of startups that we can access. So that's why we are helping UN Women with this new coalition in order to create a better environment that can accelerate the sort of options that we have in order that we can reach the 50% quicker than in 5 years.
Do we have one more burning question?
Hello. The thing that I really connected with today was the necessity to train young girls, to get them started very young, to get them confident about what they can do. So what, in the opinion of the panel, what exactly could we do to help training of young girls for entrepreneurship today?
I think that's an excellent question. The first thing is what we're suggesting and advocating, I'm sure Doreen will say this too, is in the education system, the African Development Bank at the moment is doing a whole transformation of the education policies to make sure that we can prepare people for the digital society that we're in, number one. Innovation and entrepreneurship. Many universities are starting programs for startups and accelerators. That might be a little bit too late. What we're doing, in fact, for the last 2 years, this year is the third, with the ITU, we've been running a workshop or a thematic workshop at WISES, which is looking at accelerating girls' education through ICTs and STEM. So it's provoking the thinking and bringing case studies from other countries to share and show what they're doing. But I think one of the most important things that's missing from your question, and I don't know how you do this, is the accountability. We know where the gaps are, but when we keep saying it, change it, and countries don't, and we measure them as the lowest, what is the consequences? I'm actually asking you guys in the UN. I'm building on your question, because when they don't listen, what do we do?
If you have a thought starter, at least, you mentioned accountability in your talk, Nimma. Each of you talked about where we are in the ratios, but consequences is where accountability meets. You're measuring, that's part of it. What can we take away that we can maybe put into action where consequences meets commitment makes change?
We, as a W20, we are settling what we call the business case. We are suggesting to create different measurement organization in all the countries across the B20 countries, because we want to prove when inclusion is increasing, the GDP is increasing as well. So the advantage of the leaders to include more women in the tax force, in the trade force, we are going to have better impact in the economy of the world. So we are measuring everything in order to have the impact, and we are going to present in the W20 summit.
Yeah. Offline, I can talk to you about ideas on what each person can do to create pods to capture young women at the point where they can learn quite quickly through notions of STEM, programs around STEM. So let me say, I'll say it as a thought starter. When you talk about accountability, you have criteria that shows, is an operation diverse? Is it pouring out ideas that may or may not be innovative? Where you do not see that happening, where you have criteria in place, you de-invest. And when people begin to see that their ability to be balanced, not first, but balanced, and to be inclusive, gets rewarded, and when it's not, you move out. You treat your platform as a portfolio, and that's how you enforce accountability.
So just very quickly, again, the importance of accountability. So making commitments and having your commitments be monitored, and then reporting on them, as you were saying, Salma. So, calling out those that are not coming through on their commitments. I think that's very important. And last point, everybody has a role to play. Again, as you were going to before, from teachers to parents to each one of us, we can all take an action to make a difference. Thank you.
On that note, I want to thank the panel for a truly stimulating breadth of perspectives. This web that you talked about too, Nimma, that is all of us. Diversity is not a woman's conversation, it's a human conversation. This is about us, that we matter, who we are. Unstereotype us. Let us unleash our genius on the world. Let's join the army over tea or wine or whatever you want to do, but let's be the army of change. This generation is us. It's not how old you are, it's when it happened on your watch. It's our watch. It's our time. Thank you very much, panel.